Hey folks, how's it going? Brian Blessing coming to you from Las Vegas. Glad to be with you here at BangTheBook.com. Another season tips off. It's unbelievable. College basketball is up. Started with a vengeance early this week. Now we focus our attention on the long haul and who will ultimately cut down the nets. The Duke Blue Devils with a monster win. I mean, they pulled the Sasquatch foot out on Kentucky in the opening game. They're the real deal. They're 4-1 to cut down the nets, and they're even money to make it to the Final Four. So Duke kind of turning into the Golden State of the college basketball futures. Some of the other teams that are out there, Kentucky's on the board at 6-1. Yes, it's a one-game deal when they get mauled by Duke, but Calipari, so many young kids, and this is a team kind of like Michigan State, where Tom Izzo wants them to peak at the right time in the playoffs. They're still on the board at 6-1. Kansas with a win over Michigan State at 6-1. We're looking at the Jayhawks on the board to win the championship. And North Carolina, 12-1 was the opener, and you're sitting there and you're looking at 8-1 on the board for the North Carolina Tar Heels. There are some teams that step up into the equation. You get a Nevada that pops in, number 7 in the country preseason. You'll get a massive overlaid price on them simply because they play in the Mountain West Conference. But we start focusing on the futures and a time of year in college basketball where we'll just throw some generic footnotes out to you. You're going to get David playing Goliath. You do get that opportunity in college basketball where the mid-majors and the little guy gets their chance on occasion to take on some of the big boys. Holiday tournaments will be part of the equation. Thanksgiving, Christmas tournaments are coming up in the early stages of college basketball. One thing you want to start paying attention to on these neutral sites, do a little homework. Find out what teams actually travel well. I mean, and if it's an exotic location like Hawaii or here in Vegas, we see it all the time. I can tell you games that were played over at the Orleans Arena where North Carolina came in and Louisville came in, and they'd bring 4,000 or 5,000 fans with them. The Louisville game would be on. All the red shirts were there. The North Carolina fans, they were out in the sports book or running around Vegas. They didn't go to the game. But then you'll get events where there'll be 5,000 for one team and literally 100 people for the other team. So even though it's listed as a neutral site, do a little homework and find out who travels well to these games, because there's a home court edge that's just not factored in, and you'll find an opportunity. The other thing is do a little homework on coaches and some of the trends and things that they're capable of doing on an annual basis. A guy like Jim Boeheim at Syracuse, every year, plays a very weak, for the most part, schedule in the first 10, 12 games. And in there are a lot of little regional rivalry games with the Cornells of the world. Also do some homework. Find out if a coach is playing a former assistant coach, and they could be a big favorite. They'll take their foot off the pedal. They're not going to embarrass a guy they mentored. There's so many human intangibles. College basketball is spectacular. You start looking at the strength of conferences. How about the smaller schools? I mean, in the MAC, Buffalo last year, they beat Arizona in the NCAA tournament and hung with Kentucky for a long time. They're going to be a stud again in the MAC. This is a team that scored a boatload of points. They lose a player, a point guard, but their leading scorer and a big man that really rose to the occasion at the end of the year, he's back. These are teams that could take the next step forward. I mentioned in Nevada, there's number 7 in the country coming out of the Mountain West. There's the weight of expectations and pressure. And the big thing you want to really look for if you're going to have an advantage in college basketball is very early on, as soon as you possibly can, try to get a read on the pace of play. Just because a coach in the past played a half-court neutral zone or a 2-3 zone in a trapping defense and played a half-court brand of basketball could have entirely new personnel. And all of a sudden, this next year out of the gate could be a run-and-gun team. So just don't go overboard with what you remember from last year. You got to put the time in, do a little homework. Things can change in the early stages of a college basketball season. And the other thing, there'll be suspensions, guys that maybe rolled an ankle in practices. So there'll be some hidden gems and some real opportunities out there. Because put yourself in the shoes of the odds maker. When you get to Saturdays now, with college basketball up and running and college football's going, the NBA, the NHL, and there's so many of these games that are out there and up and running, you're going to find some chinks in the armor and some cracks, and it takes a little bit of homework. It's a brand new season, college basketball. It's an exciting time of year. I say buyer beware, tread lightly on the way in, do a little extra homework on the front end, and it's like baseball betting. You want to get on board a streak in the beginning. You want to find a team, or maybe you can get them 4-5 games in a row going over the total before the odds makers catch up. It's all about you doing your homework as a brand new season begins. Always glad to be with you at BangTheBook.com. Follow along on Twitter at BangTheBook. Follow me at Brian Blessing. And always check out the Sports Betting Podcast with our good friend Adam Burke. Great information, all sports. He's got you covered all week long right here at BangTheBook.com.